interface, as I mentioned, basically is kind of an abstract blueprint, right? So classes also is kind of treated as a blueprint. So in classes blueprint, basically you are writing some rules, writing some kind of a custom formula which you later use it. So similarly in interface also we are gonna write some rules. Rules, I mean some attributes, some methods will be there, but we are not going to implement those methods. Okay, we keep them open. Okay, so some rules are meant to be open so that whoever is going to use that blueprint, they are going to implement it. Basically that's the fundamental behavior or the fundamental principle behind the interface. Okay, so to give some flexibility, whoever is going to implement it, they will choose how to implement that particular mechanism or that formula. But it mandates that at least what the signature of that method is going to be, or that behavior going to be, or what behaviors it should have, it mandates it basically. So in interface, so it will have a lot of methods, let's say. Okay, so by default all the methods are public abstract. Okay, so what do you mean by abstract method? That means there is a keyword actually named as abstract. You put that before a method, and you don't provide any body. So what do you mean by don't provide by body? Means basically you end that method declaration with a parenthesis, then a semicolon. Then there will no curly bracket starting or no curly bracket ending. Okay, so if we go to the coding, let me go to the editor. So I was showing here this picture. So what somewhere I found in the internet, like what is an interface? It is used to be achieve abstraction. Then by interface, we can support the functionality of multiple inheritance, and it can be used to achieve loose coupling. So I'm gonna discuss all these 3 points. Okay, so today we are going to learn about the inheritance, right? OOPS concept basically. So that's why we'll start with interface. Okay, so we were here last time. So let me create a basic interface. Okay, what kind of interface? So how do you do that? You choose a packet, go to new, right click and go to new, and basically you look for, there is a Java class. Okay, if I choose here Java class, although it is written as Java class, so I'm using currently IntelliJ IDEA ID. Okay, so you choose that as a Java class, but once you choose it, now you get an options to choose class, interface, enum, or annotation, right? So previously we choose class, now we are going to choose interface. So let me get a name. So what kind of name I'm going to give? Let's say I'm going to create animal interface. Okay, animal. Is the spelling correct? I'm forgetting. Yeah, it's correct. Okay, see here. So I created an interface. So this is the signature. You start with public, then the interface keyword, then the actual interface name, and then start with the parenthesis, right? Sorry, curly brackets, and end with the curly bracket. This is a basic interface. This is absolutely fine. Means if you don't put any logic or any method, so this is also compilable. There will be no error if you don't provide anything inside it. Okay, so this is also logically fine. So but let's start putting something. So as it can have also members, that means attributes and methods. So let's define some attributes. So think this way, we have chose to go with animal. Okay, why with animal I went? because I want to create some abstract blueprint regarding animals. Okay, so when do you think about animals? Okay, so what do you think of them? What are the attributes they can have? Can you give at least two of them attributes names? Any one of you?
Are they nocturnal animal or like they are like vegetarian or non-vegetarian, carnivorous, those kind of things.
Okay, what else? What about size? What about their look? Those can be also considered as attributes, right?
Yeah.
How many legs they have, how many eyes they have, uh, they fly, something like that, right? So let me define some of the attributes related to that. So let me choose. Let me choose Boolean. Okay. So have you worked with interface before? So can any of you tell why I'm getting red mark here?
Some import maybe. Import thing. I don't.
Okay, let me give you some hint. Let me move over here.
You have to initialize the string
Okay, but why it is making mandatory as to initialize it here?
without accepting. Then for null values, it can't be accepted like that.
But in like a vehicle class, we are able to see. We didn't provide any initialization here, right? It was okay. But in interface, why it is making sure that it need to initialize? You understand what is initialize means, right?
Yes.
Initialize means basically providing some value to it. So this is just a reference we created of string object. Basically string is the data type. In this case, it is a Boolean. It is a string also here. So this is a reference. So in the right side part, after equal to, we didn't put any value. So we just ended with a semicolon. That means this is just a declaration part. Okay. So if we put anything, any value after putting an equal to, then putting some value here, let's say something like that, then this part after equal to, that part is called as initialization. That you are doing some assignment, actually some value you are assigning, that is initialization. So that's what it is pointing out, that we are not providing any data here, right? Variable domestic animal might not have been initialized, right? Correct. So why it is making mandatory? The compiler is shouting at us. Do you think you can answer it? Okay, let me answer. So because because any attributes you define or put inside an interface, I told they are by default are abstract. Okay, they're by default abstract. Abstract means by default, if you put or not, sorry, for methods, this is not abstract, that is for method. Sorry, what I'm saying, for variables, those are not abstract, rather those are final actually. Okay, so by default, you put or not, you get something like this final. Okay, so any final variable you do, you have to actually initialize that value. Okay, there itself, otherwise it gonna it gonna keep ask you. Okay, like that. So similarly, last time, yesterday, vehicle we created here, right, and we made it private. So if you make it final as well, okay, similarly it will also keep you asking that you didn't initialize that. Notice here. Okay, variable type might not have been initialized, right? So the same thing basically. So in an interface, any variables you declare or you put, okay, it will ask you to initialize there itself, otherwise it will not let you proceed further. It will make the compile fail. So that's why this final is by default explicitly provided by the JVM or the compiler at runtime itself here. So that means all the variables we put here, those are by default public and final. Okay, there will be a public also signature on the signature, that is also by default. You put or not, it will be there. Okay, so as it becomes a final variable, then it becomes mandatory to put a value to that. Okay, you have to mandatorily put an assignment there itself. Got it? So something like that. So here also, string also by default is a final here. So I need to put some value to it. Okay, let's say any value. Okay, I'm just creating. Now let's say interface, I created some variables. Let me create some methods. Okay, I'm not going to write any public. It is the same thing. If we write anything public or abstract or not, it is any method you defined in the interface without any body, those becomes abstract. Okay, so let me see, this is a method. What I'm doing, I'm sending a return type of boolean. My method is or the behavior I'm writing here can crawl. Okay, so I'm trying to say this animal can crawl or not. Okay, then and in when you write a method, always it needs to be it should start with a small case, then the rest of the words should follow as camel case. You know camel case, right? So there should be all the words you do it should start with a capital, then the other letters will follow as a lowercase. So that's the camel case called, but the method should start with the lowercase, and it should always be a kind of a verb kind of thing, which is treated as action items, right? Then let's say okay, so I have written four behaviors here. So as you notice here, I'm not giving any body to any of the methods. Okay, so those are, that means those are abstract here. body means what basically? So rather than putting a semicolon here, you start with a curly bracket and end with a curly bracket, right? And that's how you are providing a body. Now why it is again making a red, why it is crying for it? Because the return type here I have written a string, but out of this method I'm not returning anything, right? So to make it happy, you can do return something like that. It should do, okay? But as I mentioned, anything you write in an interface, it need to be abstract, okay? Now try to understand. Java 1.8 you heard, right? And currently maybe we are in Java 1.7, sorry, Java 17 we are in, okay? So after Java 1.8, what happened? Actually, interfaces now supported methods with a body also, okay? So before Java 1.8, okay, before Java 1.8, there was no method support with a body, okay? So this was actually not allowed before Java 1.8. After Java 1.8, they started supporting some methods with body, but there is a condition. You need to make this method either as a default, something default method, not here, maybe here before the, like that, okay, then it will go away. Okay, you make that method as a default, or you make that method as a static, okay? These are two conditions added after Java 1.8. Try to remember. So if somebody asks what is the difference of interface after 1.8, so this is the thing. Basically, you are allowed to have some methods which can have their own body or own implementation. Here might be there might be more line of codes, more logics, okay? That is absolutely fine, okay? That is fine, absolutely, we can have. But thing is that we need to make that method either static or make that as a default, okay? That is understood. So, and there will be another concept related to interface after Java 1.8. So that is called functional interfaces. Okay. So we'll talk about that later, but we'll revisit that one later because that's a broader topic. That's an advanced topic. We'll visit that one later. So for time being, while discussing about interface, just remember that now after Java 1.8, it supports some of the methods which can have some body, means some logic inside that. Okay, so basically what is body means? Basically, we are basically writing some formula or some blueprints, right? And this happened to be just a behavior. Behavior about what? Behavior about this particular interface, or if you talk about class, okay, in classes it will be the class, but in interface it is the subject here currently. So we are talking about animals. So animal is basically having this particular behavior. So those things we defined here, that's how we think, that's how the logical thinking start, okay? So why did I put all these related things? Because I came up with some idea, like by brainstorming myself, that what an animal can do, like all animals, what they can do, basically what behaviors we can get out of them, like this. Even more behaviors you can find out, right? Can a what you can, like crawl, or can they jump, right? Something like that. So many behaviors can come if you think. Now let's go back. So understand that here I didn't write any abstract before any methods, but by default, similarly, all the methods you write, they will be public and public static. Sorry, public static, or what I told abstract. Okay, like that it should be. Got it? Any doubt?
Can you tell again why the values to be initialized? Interface.
Here,
Yes.
because in an interface by default, all the variables are by default final. Okay, as I saw in the classes also, anything in any before any variable, if you put the final keyword, it tries to make that variable as a constant. Okay, and to make a constant means basically it should not change its value after that. Okay, after it initialize, right? So
Yes.
it detects that you are trying to put the final keyword before the variable, but you are not providing that value. So it doesn't make sense to him, right? It doesn't make sense to the compiler. You are trying to make that attribute as final, but you didn't provide any value. So that's why the compiler will fail. So that's the simple logic. Got it?
Okay.
And as I mentioned, so in an interface, it is tricky, as though you don't see any final before here, but there is a final automatically provided by the JVM. Okay. So that means that's why I put three type of here, right? Here you can see that what you will get actually, and what you don't see it here. So if you don't see mean, that doesn't mean it is not there. That means it is also also there actually, like this. It will be there. That means it makes mandatorily that you put some values for that attribute. Got it?
Okay.
That's the thing. So now this is a method with some body. So we wrote some basic animal related some rule books now, right? This is an abstract rule book. Why abstract? Because see here, I didn't put what this animal is doing, right? Can it crawl or not crawl? I didn't write that here. Okay. Or let me make sound. Let me return a default sound of an animal. Let's say something. Okay, let's say the animal, we didn't mention who is the animal, but it is making some default sound, something, oh, something like that. Okay, so once we try to put some related classes and who is going to implement this animal, they are going to actually make the related sound. Okay, that then we are going to what we are going to do, we'll override this default one. Okay, so that is the one thing. So here, let me make it default so that at least I can override it. Okay, and so far we are clear here how the interface we created and what are the tips and tricks here. So these things actually nobody will tell. These are like tricky interview questions from like Java certifications. Okay, so basically yeah, these things automatically will not come up. So if you don't get a basic understanding how the interface works. So you guys got good understanding, right? Related why we interface need and how to create the interface. So basically we wrote a basic blueprint, and where we made the blueprint little abstract by using some of the abstract methods, because we didn't write in our rule book what they can do. Basically we simply tell that, okay, whoever in animal are there, if they are going to implement from us, if that is going to be an animal, they're supposed to define this can swim, can crawl, can fly. They're supposed to provide those method definitions. Sorry, they should provide that body. Okay, so it will make them mandatory. So that's the contract. Okay, so we just made a contract with some abstraction. So that is the thing. Now let's try to build some classes out of this animal, basically. Okay, so we're gonna learn inheritance. So what is an inheritance? Basically, everything we are talking about in Java is called object oriented, right? So we think of them, everything around us, we think them as objects. Okay, like a table or a glass or a book or a vehicle or a TV box. Okay, those are objects for us in real life. Similarly, think them as objects also in the computer language. Okay, so we are trying to mimic them in the computer language or the computer world as objects here using our Java language, right? So how do you mimic them? So in real life also, if you talk about let's say a book, right? It's an object. So how do you define that object? So there will be a name of the book, right? How many pages it has, who is the author, right? And what is that book about, right? If you ask somebody in the library, give me that book, right? So she will try to, or he will try to search for that book, right? You have to give him some clue, right? What book you are looking for. Like I'm looking for Harry Potter book, right? You gave the name of the book, or you give an author of the book, right? So those are the some properties or attributes, right? Similarly here in the computer language, we are also trying to mimic that object. So if we are trying to mimic here animal, we have given some attributes here, and we are giving some giving some behaviors also to it. So similarly, the interface also, not about interface, sorry, in the inheritance also, in real world, like you are inheriting many qualities from our parents, right? We do inherit many qualities from our parents, and then the parents inherit from the grandparents, like that, right? So in theoretically, we also inherit indirectly from our grandparents, right? So there will be some similarity you might have seen, or others might observe it. So here, same thing in the computer world, other languages too, not just Java, many languages do that concept. Okay, they try to put that into computer language too, how that inheritance should work. So in Java also, there is similar concept called inheritance. How do you do that? So there is two ways. Okay, one is through extending a class. One class can extend another class to inherit their public members. Okay, so inherit public members means, can somebody tell me what are the members means? Last time we talked, Gayatri.
Members is nothing but your variables or methods.
Correct, absolutely correct. So yeah, so inheritance means basically inheriting their publicly defined members. Okay, why I'm telling publicly? Because last time we learned about like public access modifiers, right? So first thing first, right? So all the rules should exist as for each and every concept, right? So public means it should be accessible in order to inherit. If it is not accessible, it is only wrapped inside some private class, then nobody can access it, right? Not even the children. But there is a way actually how to make them work in inheritance also. So two ways to inherit. One is by extending a class, and another way by implementing an interface. Okay, so let's learn about both two. So let's learn about how to inherit by implementing an interface. See, so we have an interface already defined here, animal, right? So let me write a class called, let's say, elephant. Okay, so you might ask, why are you coming up such names like elephant, animal, right? Why not tiger, right? So yeah, it's anything should be fine related to animal. We are talking about now animal, right? So any animal you can think logically that we can write. Basically, we are trying to mimic the abstract, basically the real world in our Java computer language, right? So that's why I am coming of examples related to animal now. If we could have talked, let's say previously we talked about vehicle, right? If I could have made vehicle as an abstract, then I could have then come up with some classes related to vehicle, let's say Ford, let's say Tesla cars, okay, something like that, or Toyota Corolla cars. So anything related, so it should be related, right? You cannot now use the interface animal here, but then in your class you shouldn't write it as a, let's say Toyota, right? It will not make any sense. So try to put some logical relation in the names also, so that anybody by seeing it should also able to figure it out. Okay, this is a animal, or this is a animal related stuff here he has written. So we should write our class names and interfaces always logical to what we are trying to achieve, or what is our subject of discussion, right? So in our case, it is animal. Let's say you are working on a banking application, right? So then similarly, you choose your classes like that, right? Let's say for a withdrawal scenario, right? You are going to write, let's say, withdrawal class. Then in the withdrawal class, you are going to write all the related functionality or logic related to withdrawal. So how do you come up with an interface there? Let's say you can write just I before withdrawal. Okay, then just a capital letter I, then write withdrawal. So it will make sense for others that it is an interface, but it is an interface of withdrawal type, withdrawal object. Okay, so that's how you choose names. Okay, that's the in real corporate world everybody writes. So let's talk about, let's write a class. So I'm going to put some classes here itself. Okay, inside learn. So new, now right click on that package, then choose Java class again. Now go for class here. Let's say give, let's say elephant. Now hit enter. Now our class is ready. Now how to make it inherit from the animal class here? So as we mentioned, it should inherit all the public members from the animal if we implement the animal class here, right? So how do you do that? So from a class, there is a keyword called implements. Okay, so you write it implements. Okay, like that. Then after you put the implements keyword, the next word, it should always be an interface. Remember that it cannot be a class. Okay, in our class we know that now animal we need to implement, so that's why I'm going to write animal here. Okay, got it. So it might suggest you other by default when you are beginner and you are trying to implement something, like here also you might see it is suggesting a lot more interfaces or something like that, right? You can see here all the first symbols, all these capital I you see, right? That means those are interfaces in green color, right? That icon you see, those are interfaces basically. So in IntelliJ, it will show up like this, all the interfaces as green colored I symbol. Okay. So if it would be a class, maybe with a green color C, might be like that. Yeah, really here. You can see here, it is C. That means class. So those little things we can observe for our better understanding for in future also. So by looking at the icon itself, you should understand that it's a class and this is an interface, right? So that's the difference. Those simple things, if you observe carefully, a lot of time you can save it by just looking at them. You'll understand that's just an interface. Okay, so here as you can see, it is, I just typed A and it is suggesting me a whole bunch of interfaces which I didn't write anywhere in my custom coding here in my packages, but those are coming from somewhere, right? So somewhere means basically where it is coming from. Those are coming from some Java related other libraries, okay, which is already in our class path. So as you can see here, automatically there are a lot of external libraries are available to here under, as we are using JDK 11, right? So from JDK itself, a lot of classes are provided by the Java library. So those are coming from there. But not too confused. we should always choose what we are supposed to choose, right? In our case, we are supposed to choose animal only, not the second one appendable. Okay, so look for that. Don't be in hurry to choose any one of them. That will be a mess. So choose animal here in our case. Now here, look again, I choose the like as I mentioned, I wrote the sentence completely. Elephant implements animal, but you might then ask why I'm getting red. Can any one of you tell why I'm getting red?
Yeah, we have to override the interface methods.
Correct. So as I am trying to use the rule book from the animal, right? So whatever rule book or the rules we have defined there, the abstractions, it is the compilers making sure that you implement in the elephant class. Okay, otherwise it will not let you go. It will keep bugging you by highlighting under with a red, and if you try to run it, it will not execute. It will be error. Okay, so that means if you take your mouse here, if you are in an ID, it will suggest, auto suggest actually what it's supposed to do. See here, it's suggesting implement the methods. Okay, so implement methods means what methods? If you click here more actions, it will suggest you implement methods. Okay, implement methods means basically all the abstract methods. Got it? So logically we are supposed to give body to all the abstract methods. So what are the abstract methods in animal interface? As I mentioned, whichever methods we didn't write any body, in this case these three. Okay, can crawl, can swim, can fly, we didn't write any body. Body means we didn't write start with curly bracket and end with curly bracket. We rather ended with a semicolon. That means we ended it here, we didn't write anything. So that is what these are abstract. Okay, whether we write abstract keyword before them or not, those are abstract. So all those three methods now it is forcing us to implement. So let's say implement methods. See, now your ID also suggesting you, see, this is IntelliJ, right? So that's why it is called IntelliJ. Maybe it is intelligently able to figure it out which are your abstract method. See, out of those four interfaces methods inside the interface, it is able to auto select all the three for us by default. Okay, so let's proceed with that. It is selected all the three. Now okay, see, it gave me by some writing some default methods related to those abstract methods. And remember that it gave you, this is just a dummy code, you know, a return false. You don't know it should return false or not. It's just written a dummy code for you. It is our responsibility now as a developer, okay, or as a tester, to write actual logic, what the logic it should go here, then finally return the, after writing the logic, then it should return that boolean, because we have written that it should return as a boolean value, right? So obviously it will return false or true only, but we can have some logic here in between, right? We can think of that. Let's say if my animal is let's say like last time, for simplicity, let's say I can just compare by name itself. Okay, something like that. If the animal type is elephant, then I'm gonna say return false, right? It cannot crawl anytime because of it's very heavy, it cannot crawl, something like that. I'm just making up some implementation logic just for simplicity. Okay, just don't go by the argument. So that's what it will go here, any logic part. Let me write it. If there is some value also called type we had written, right, in the animal, what is just category. Okay, maybe we can use that. In the category equals, let's say big, let's say big is a category for me, then I'm gonna return false. Okay, something like that. Or if the category is a reptile, sorry, not reptile, reptiles can crawl, let's say if it is a kind of fish, then it will return false. Something I'm just making up a logic. Okay, so in real world we have to think the actual logic what we are supposed to think of related to that piece of logic we are writing. So in this case, let's say return true, right? So this is what I did. I'm basically overriding. So you can notice here automatically the like the editor gave me the @ override annotations also. So this will make sure this is actually optional, you know, you can take out this one also, this annotation, still that is fine, because we are still overriding this can crawl. But what is the difference, why the annotation is needed? Because if you put this @ override, now it makes it mandatory that if you fail to put any body again, it will complain you once you again. Okay, so let's say I take out this one here and try to not provide any body, then it will keep complaining that you didn't write any body or any logic to your can crawl method, because you are trying to override, but still you didn't put any body. So that's the difference. Okay, now that is the thing. Now can swim. So similarly, we can write also some logic related to can swim. Okay, in this case, let's say if it is equals to big, so let's say not fish, if it is let's say bird category, okay, then it will false. Otherwise, how do you write if else? You know how to write if else. I'm just maybe later we are gonna learn that detail, but this is how you write a condition using if and else. Okay, so in a if clause, I'm just giving you some hint. So inside a if, your parenthesis starts here, and inside that parenthesis, any logical condition you want to put to check what it is supposed to do, it should return a true or false. Okay, after all the calculations or the expressions you put, it should return true or false. Okay, so here I'm doing a or operator here. If you are aware of what is a or operator, that's good. Otherwise, just to let you know, so you put two pipelines here, those are called pipes. The single one is called a pipe. So I put two pipes here, so that symbol will come up above your enter in your keyboard, above the enter, you see. So you use that forward slash, right? You forward or backward, maybe backward. Okay, so press shift and that key, then it will give you that symbol, that pipe. Okay, so you use two of them, so that is called a logical or operator. So how it will do that? It will basically evaluate the first expression here to first check what the return will be. So in this case, it will check here category, which is a string here. So it will bring that actual category value, and then it will try to do a equals check. Equals is a method inside the string. Okay, so as category is a string object, so inside string object, equals is a method there to check basically if the values are equal or not. So here it's gonna check actual categories value to big, it will gonna compare. Okay, and it will compare the case sensitive here in this case. So category here should supposed to come as a small case big. Okay, it comes as a capital B big with a IG, then it will fail. So there is another way also called equals ignore case, like that. That way it will check irrespective of your capital or small cases inside the category. It will always check with ignoring the case. That means whether big comes with a capital or small, doesn't matter. It always gonna check with similarly with the big only, okay? With a lower or capital, both it gonna check like that way, okay? So we are supposed to actually use equals ignore case to basically make it more user friendly, because we never know, some people might send as a capital B with all the lower cases, right? So that's why we're supposed to use this equals ignore, not actual equals, which is actually case sensitive. So in this case also, we are gonna do this one, equals ignore case. Got it? So here also, what I'm trying to do here in the else part, okay? So in the if category, basically within the parentheses, something should evaluate to true or false. So what I was telling, the first one is evaluating to true, then the second part also should evaluate to something true or false. So we'll actually discuss about this logical operators later in detail, but for simplicity, just try to remember it's evaluating to something true or false. Then if the if statement is true here, then this logical block will enter, so it will execute here inside one. If it become false, it will come to the second part here. So now it will try to evaluate. Now again in the else part, I'm keeping another if also. Okay, so here what I'm going to check now, really I know that only fish can swim, right? So what I'm trying to achieve here, I'm trying to say that category, if it is equals to fish, then only it should return me true, right? See here, there is a parent missing. Okay, got it. Now why it is again complaining me that I didn't send anything, because it is thinking that I am basically enclosing all the return statement here and here, right? Let me see why it is complaining. Missing return statement. Yeah, that's what I understand. See here, compiler is able to figure it out that what if this block also never enters here, right? So that means there will be no return statement from our block. That's why it is expecting you to provide a return statement. So what we can do, by default, let's say return false. Okay, you can put it here like that. So it might be confusing initially, but think it like this way. So anytime the execution enters any block, the execution will return back to the whoever is calling this method. Okay, so it will not going to execute furthermore. So all these returns are not going to be executed, okay, if it enters this block. Now similarly, it becomes false, it's gonna enter this block. Now if this logic becomes true, it will return true here and it will return back. It's gonna not again come back to this line. Okay, that's how it works. Now if this condition also fails, then only it's gonna enter line number 20. Then in that case, it will return false. Got it? So you might see here 3 return statements, but only one return statement is going to execute at a single time. Not all of the 3 will be executed. So this is absolutely fine logic. Okay, that's how in real life we write. Okay, got it? So this was the, let's say, can swim. So okay, we have overridden all the abstract methods from our animal class here. Here we are going to call animal as a parent here and elephant as a child. Why? Because elephant is kind of implementing from animal all the abstract. And as you see here, category, I didn't write any attributes here as like string, category, something like that. I didn't write myself, right? This was not here at all. But this category is coming from animal itself, right? How do you know that? So just hover over it and in your keyboard, press Control. If you are in a Mac, press Command and then just click mouse button it should take you to wherever it is declared. Okay, so notice here you can see it came to the interface. So from here it is taking using that category, right? Got it? So as this is public by default, right, these attributes also, that means I can happily use those attributes too in my child class, in this case the elephant. So that's how it worked. Got it? So but how do you, but here there will be simple like logic mistake, because in our notice here in our animal class, we have hard-coded category as a reptile itself, right? And this is already final. We cannot actually override or reinitialize this value, right? So those things also kind of we should take into consideration, right? So let's say in that purpose, let me then kind of not use that, so that at least our logic should, now we should write as class here, or attribute here, let's say category. Okay, and we are going to, let's say, provide that category maybe later. We'll, let's say, create a constructor here, constructor, how last time we did, right? Let me give a default constructor, and let me give a parameterized constructor as well. So parameterized constructor, in this case, as I have written only one attribute, I'm supposed to initialize that in my constructor. So it is a string type. So string, let's say category. Okay, let's say just use that name, same name. Then to use this category, we should use this dot category, right? Then equal to, then this category. Okay, so you might ask why it is confusing, why the category is assigning back to category itself, right? So because in real life we write something like that, because if you give a meaningful name, it is makes sense actually to the developers, and this is more professional. If you write here C, that is also absolutely fine. Basically, this is the parameter, this is the supposed to catch the value here, whoever is sending, and it's supposed to pass it to inside the body basically here, right? So this is also absolutely fine, no problem in that. Okay, but in real life, whenever you write, because nobody actually write all these constructors or any methods by manually actually so far. And if you use a editor to do that for you, right, like in this case I'm gonna use here IntelliJ. Let me do right click here, let's go to generate, and generate, let's say I'm going to generate the constructor here. Then it is asking me what attributes pick. I'm going to choose only, I have only one category, sorry, only one attribute here, that is a category. So I'm going to choose that, then say okay. Now notice here, so automatically the ID also picking the same thing, whatever the attributes you define. So this is actually standard, so don't get confused why the same name is twice here. So this category is local here to this block, and this category, wherever the this is defined before that, that means it is the instance variable you are referring here. So this supposed to provide the instance reference, whoever object is kind of created runtime, that object will be referred here. Okay, so whenever you are going to create a object of elephant and give name it as object one, so you can, that time the object one will be treated in place of this here that time. Okay, so that time you will get object one dot category equal to this category, like that. Okay, it might be confusing, but when you practice slowly, it will come to our mind. Okay, now I wrote two constructors here. One is a blank constructor and another one is one parameterized constructor having one single attribute as a parameter. Got it? So what is the purpose? Basically, I'm asking the developer or asking the implementer, whoever is going to make the object out of elephant, they're supposed to give me the category, okay, that time itself. So based on that category, then all my logics has written. See here, if the user chooses to create an object of category type of, let's say, reptile, based on that, my method's gonna return logically also like that, right? Something like that, okay? So then you might think that why I don't have that other method, right? In the animal, like this make sound. Can't I override that? Yeah, absolutely, we can override it also, okay? But this is made as default. So if you don't override also, you get that make sound method as free from your elephant, from your animal, because you are implementing that one, and that's a default method. By default, it is coming in the contract free for you to use, start using it, okay? So that was the purpose actually. In Java 1.8 later, they started using all those default and static, because they thought that, okay, some methods can be put there so that you out of the box, you can start using it, okay, right, other than writing your own implementation. So that was the purpose. That's why they started supporting some of the methods allowed in the interface to have some bodies, to have some default mechanism, default behaviors for your interface, or whatever blueprint you are writing, to have some default logic. Okay, now we got elephant and animal. So elephant, now I have written all my logic. Let's test this out. So how do you test it? How do you create object for elephant? Remember, we just written just a class. Now this is by itself is not going to invoke itself, or it's not going to run like that, right? If I try to run it, right click on that class and you don't see the run button here. Why I don't see? Can you tell, any one of you?
Public void is not there.
What public void?
The main method, sorry, public static.
Yeah, there is no main method here in the elephant, right? So that's why. So as I mentioned, public static void method, main method is our entry, right? So as a starter, what we can do, we can write our own main method here itself in the elephant class, and we can start creating elephant objects itself in here also. But that's not actually good practice, right? You don't simply just write executors, sorry, not write, make the class executable itself on its own, right? So basically some classes are meant to be used from other classes, okay, from some other tester classes, right? So in real life also something like that, right? Got it, my point? So I'm gonna write some tester class where I'll just create some objects out of elephant. So let me do that class. Can you suggest me a better name for testing that elephant class? Gayatri, can you suggest, please? I'm just trying to find out your thinking ability. Are you able to think logically?
Can you please repeat?
Mm-hmm.
Can you please repeat? You were frozen actually.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to test the elephant class we just made, right? I'm just trying to create a tester class so that from there I'll write a main method so that we can create some of the elephant objects. So suggest me a name. What name I should write to test that elephant?
Animal tester class like that.
Okay, good. Yeah, you can do that. We can go for animal tester. So Gayatri, can you suggest any name also?
Yeah, she told animal test class is okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, so logically we should choose similar names. Okay, so it should go animal tester class, or you can choose maybe some Jew class or something like that, or for simplicity some people do just write test, right, test class, but we are gonna think actually logically and or professionally we should think. So let's go with the animal tester. Okay, something like that. So I created animal tester class. So now you understand why I didn't write the main method in the elephant. So basically it is logically, actually logically not correct, but there is nothing objecting me or like stopping me to create a main class in the elephant, but in real life professionally it's not suggested, or it is not good to test the class itself in the same class. Okay, so rather you create another class and start testing from there. Okay, so let me write a main method here. So in IntelliJ, just type main and choose that main and hit enter. It's going to give you the public static void main. And here, let me create elephant. Okay, so elephant is a class. Let me create EL1. Let's say elephant1. Then new elephant. Okay, now notice here, new elephant. Now EL1 dot category. So I can access the category like this. Okay, and I'm going to let's see, give it a type. Okay, let me give it a type. So let's say give big. This is object one. Okay, now let me do EL1 dot. Now you can see whoever are the public methods, you can start utilize them, right? Now I'm gonna check can it crawl or not. So I know that can crawl is a boolean type, it is returning a boolean, right? So you can directly utilize that one in a print statement, or I have option to capture that value in a boolean value and then I can just print it, right? That's a two line statement. In IntelliJ, you just write s out, then do control space to get the system.out.println. Okay, so I can now write that b. Okay, like that. Let's test it out. Right click and just execute it. See here, it is giving me false. Okay, it cannot crawl. Now let me tweak it. So let's say I make it as reptile. Okay, in category 1. Now execute it. See, now it's giving me true. That means my logic is working fine, right? So what is happening here? Based on the category here, I'm choosing, it is calling the can crawl logically, right? It is going here inside the elephant and it is checking the logic here basically based on the category. It is not type of big or not type of fish. Basically reptile is falling. So it is returning me true. Okay, like that. So basically that is the thing. So basically I can put another if condition here just to make sure only reptiles are covered here, not just any Okay, then
You
we'll
have to
see
put return statement.
if there is extra parenthesis. If yeah, got it. So we added another if condition here. That's why it is expecting me to put a return statement, because logically what is happening, it is compiler is so intelligent, it is able to figure it out that what if this condition never or becomes false, right? Then there will be no return statement. That's why it is expecting a return statement. Or this is one way. Okay, other way what you can do, again you can write another else statement here, and then you can write that same return statement inside here. That will also do, right? Like this. But why to write again another else statement? Because there is no logic there. So you can just take out that and just write your own return statement in a single line. Okay, that is the way to go. Okay, this is more professional way. Got it? So this is, let me close this. This is the testing. Let me test it let me test the constructor way. See, notice here, now I created one object as EL1. I'm naming it as EL1 for my first elephant object. And I'm initializing that reptile using the object dot that attribute name as a reptile, because I'm able to do that because I didn't make this attribute as private here, right? Can you tell me if I needed, last time we saw the encapsulation, is this a better way? This is not, right? So in encapsulation concept, we should make it as actually private, right? Correct? Do you remember that encapsulation concept?
Yeah.
So it's supposed to actually, in encapsulation concept, it's supposed to be private, and that is the better approach, a professional approach. So if I'm putting it private, then it will not be available now here in the tester as approachable. You cannot just use the object and dot operator, then you cannot just access that, right? So if you put private here, we should then have a setter getter there, something like that. So you do just right click, generate, and let's say getter and setter. And in our case, only one attribute is there. So choose that. Okay. Now we have setter getter ready here. This is the getter, and this is a setter for that particular attribute here. And now notice here, it is still showing as one related problem. So this is IntelliJ. It is able to figure it out why this error is coming to here. So it is, if you click it also, it will lead you to where the error is coming. So it was able to figure it out that there was no such accessible thing called category. So it was able to. So what we need to write it here, basically use the setter method here, right? Because we're trying to set that attribute using the setter method. So set category, then inside that pass that value like that. Got it? So this is one object. Let me create another object. Okay, this is one logical statement. Let me give some space in between, and let me just copy paste it because I don't want to write again. Let me rename this as EL2, and this will be EL2. And so this time I'm not going to utilize any variable here. Rather, I'm going to call this one directly inside the print statement. That is also possible, right? You know. So anything which is returned here as a string or returning as a string inside the method, so that can feed to the println, because println, if you hover over, it is basically expecting a string inside that. Println boolean x, why is that? Oh, okay. So basically println is basically currently, as we are sending a boolean here, it is also expecting a boolean here, but in turn it is going to print that whatever we are returning, it is going to print on the console. Okay, that is the purpose of println. So okay, so I'm going to create elephant not using the blank constructor here. Rather, I'm going to utilize that second options we have to use the parameterized construction. So let me create an elephant. So here the name actually not correct. Okay, so I'm trying to create the elephant, but it's not an elephant actually. I'm not trying to create all the elephants. I'm actually creating some animals, right? So what name, better name I can come up with? Can you suggest some better names other than elephant?
Forest animal.
Okay, yeah, we can go for that. So let me choose another concept or in the ID we have. So whenever you write a class, but you want to rename it, just don't simply start replacing it here. Okay, so it will bring you a lot of errors. Okay, because we never know where this class was used or referenced from, right? So there is a better way called a refactor. Okay, so what you do, you just double click on that class, you just right click, and there is a concept called a refactor. So choose that, and under refactor there should be rename. So this is both the same for Eclipse and IntelliJ. Okay, do refactor, then rename. Now it will hover over that, automatically auto selected that name, class name. You just use your mouse keys to move left or right. Okay, now still you are in that auto selected picture. Okay, so I'm going to use, let's say, forest animal, whatever. Okay, see here, now still automatically it able to change all places wherever needed. Okay, and even this left side, in the inside the package, the class name also will also change automatically. Now I'm still here. Now in your keyboard, hit enter button. Okay, see, so it changed here, it changed here, here, also here. Okay, in this case, and also inside the animal tester, you can see here, right? Everywhere it changed. So that's the beauty of a refactor. Okay, now forest animal, let's say reptile. Now let's say in this case, I'm going to choose, let's say, bird. Okay, correct. Now in this thing also, let me call another method, let's say can fly. Okay, in this case, and let me modify my print statement little bit. Let me say can fly, something like that, then put some spaces so that you can see actually what is this. Like it is printing something like this, right? If I observe it, it is meaningless. If I read it here, true for what? I don't get it. So that's why in real life, these print statements are used actually for debugging purpose, right? For QA or for tester, right? So in production code, there will be no print statements. So instead of print statements, you use log4j. But other than log4j, as currently you had some issues related to some hacking related stuff, right? Some security vulnerability were there. So, but many people used log4j a lot. So there are some other better options also, like SFLJ log4j, or there are log4j higher versions also we can utilize. So they have better control what you write or print on your console, and even you can write those into some files. So that's why we do use logging. Okay, so we'll learn those things later. So we are as developing our code, that's why we need some basic console printing, right? So that's why we go for system printing. So but as we are our main goal is to understand from the console, right, after the program is written. So it is always better to then put some statements before your value, right? Then only you will be able to get it what it printed for what purpose, right? If you just write true, false, let's say 10 are there, then it will be hard for you to figure out which true was for which value, right? So like that. So that's why we are kind of give some hint to for ourselves or whoever is going to read our console logs, for them later to understand better. Let's say put some strings before the values, okay, like that. So these things will come to you slowly once you start developing that thinking ability. First to try to develop the functionality, then these are cosmetic changes we can do anytime. Okay, so I'm using two methods here. So similarly, let me use this method here also. This will be EL1 because that is the first object. And there was another method also. Let me call that can swim. Okay. That. Print it here. Okay. These kind of copy paste mistakes just hard to find. Okay. If we don't observe it carefully, so you might notice that can fly will come 2 times here because this was a copy pasted item from the previous, right? So now I copied and pasted, but simply if you forget, you changed here, but you forget to change in the string part here. So it's gonna simply print can fly 2 times for you. Just let keep it like that. And one thing to notice here, that see here, these are some logical errors. Okay, compiler cannot find these kind of things. These will come later as a bug. Okay, so what is happening here? See, EL1 supposed to logically it should, your logic is ending here, right? But same EL1 you are again utilizing here, but supposedly you should be supposed to use the EL2 actually, because you are testing in EL2 conditions here, but nobody's stopping you to use EL1 here too. Okay, so those things actually will come as bugs later. Okay, because this thing will obviously give the return the value of for EL1, and you are trying to condition check for the this animal. So let's test that, what happens. See here. Okay, I didn't give it a space here. Can crawl. Oh. Okay, let me run again. See here, first one came as true. That was the first object, and then the second object can fly false. Then the again can fly false. Then obviously it is misleading, right? Can fly, why it came 2 times? Again here also 2 times. Now you know the thing, right? It was a copy paste mistake. Rather, it's supposed to be can swim, right? Here it should be swim, and here it's supposed to be swim, something like that, right? So now let me do that. One mistake we figure it out and fixed it, right? Now you notice here, now can crawl. So what was the thing? Now again there is something we are missing in the console. So basically which object we are trying to test, right? That picture we are not getting here. So to get that info also, so better now let's print also the category also, right? Like what was the category? Okay, so how do you do that? So you can just append that category here. So how to get that category? So there is a getter method, right? You don't need to hard code that. So get category, it's supposed to give el1.get category. If you do, it should supposed to give you the category, right? Then do the plus, that is the, what do you call that, concatenation operator in string. Basically this is a string and you are concatenating another string, so use a plus operator you can use. Okay, and there is a concat method also that we'll learn later. So basically in all the methods we are writing, we can concatenate this thing, just copy paste it, so that it will give you which object we are actually testing it, right? Now in this case it will be rather not EL1, rather it will be EL2. Let me copy this one till here. So this is how you simply you are just enhancing your code as per your needs, right? From simply, see, at least a little bit complex we went. Now at least you might be understanding how the code we are writing. See here, now it can, okay, again another mistake, we don't have a space in between, so that's why it is kind of concatenating without any spaces. Like here, see, the reptile can, there is no space in between reptile and can. Now it is fixed. Right click, animal, run that animal tester. Now see here, reptile can crawl, true. Okay, reptile can crawl, false. Reptile can swim, false. Now again here it didn't come. Okay, why that object didn't come here? Can any one of you tell?
You mentioned here is EL1 dot set category.
Okay, so what is the wrong? Which part is the wrong?
Here is the wrong. You have to set EL2 dot set category.
Good. Okay. So Mamta, are you getting?
Yeah.
So see, these kind of things, that's how in development the developer make mistakes, silly mistakes, and those come up as bugs. Okay, so basically this is where actually as a tester kind of we are reading the logs and able to find out, okay, here it's supposed to give me the name of that category, but it didn't come, right? So something is failing. So as a developer, I then go to my code trying to think what might go went wrong, why it didn't supposed to come. So why I'm telling you, this is how the developers thinking should be going. Okay, as a developer, what we should think, how to debug. So here it's supposed to come that category, but somehow the category is not coming. So where things might go went wrong. So if you see here, notice here, there are two things went wrong. One is we are creating EL2 and calling EL2 get category, right? So in EL2, basically that category is not basically getting assigned. It is getting assigned, but it is getting assigned as a string, empty string only, right? Because we don't have any check in the setter that it should not accept any empty string, something like that. We don't have any check. So it allowed it to accept the string. So what happened? So it accepted the category as an empty string and it allowed. If I don't pass it as an empty string here, notice that if I pass it nothing, okay, so that means it is taking the blank constructor, right? And blank constructor, that means it will have a null here in the cat. So not null basically, but there was a default or no default. Okay, no default. So in that case, what will happen? It will have null actually in the category. Now, if I run it, it will be null in the console here. It will be null can crawl, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, it is throwing an exception, null pointer. Why? Because, okay, this exception thing we'll learn later. Because why it happened? Because the category was null actually. And on null, top of null, we are trying to call some methods actually. Okay. like this, what methods we are trying to use on category, like this here. Okay, category dot equals ignore case, right? So in this case, it will fail. It will fail in the null pointer. See here, it is also showing you line number 24. Okay, line number 24, the null pointer is coming up. Okay, so here in 24 at this line. Okay, so basically the null, anything on top of null, if you are trying to use any methods, it will give you a null pointer exception. It's simple as that. Okay, so this was null, this object became a null, and on null we are trying to invoke a method which is not existing, right? That's why we are getting null pointer exception. So it's supposed to be a string here. Then inside string, actually we have the equals ignore case method. But in this case, it became null. And in null, there is no method. So it was a null pointer. So that's a problem. So this is one. Then again, we are using EL to get category, but we are setting as EL1. That's a logical simple mistake. So it's supposed to be EL2 now. Okay, now what I'm doing, I'm setting EL2. Now let's run. It should work now. Okay, now see here, it worked. Bird. Okay, can bird. Now here, simple thing, bird can fly, false. Now again, something failed. So bird supposed to fly actually. It should return true, but why it is sending me false? So let's check it. Why it is sending false? Because we didn't override the logic here. For any condition, it is returning false always, right? So how to make that work? So just copy paste some of the previous logic and rewrite the logic based on the thing. If the category is big, bird, okay, just take out this bird part here, right? Rather, we just put it here and return as true and make it fish or some other reptile, or you can put another or also, because we are dealing with the reptiles also. Let's put that into our condition. Reptile, got it. Now let's test it. Now it's supposed to work. See here, now birds can fly, true, that's false. So it became correct. Okay, now one more thing I wanted to show you, that I don't want to use this setter method here. Rather, I have utilized this. I have created a beautiful constructor where, yeah, this one, right? This beautiful parameterized constructor here, right? I want to utilize that, right? I want to get category, pass that into that constructor and set that category like this way. So what I can do, rather than sending it as a set category setter method way, I can pass that bird string like this way also. That also will work. Run it. See here, the same thing. Okay. So to recap, basically we created the interface named as animal here. And in the animal, we created some of the default attributes. Okay. In this case, let's say 2 or 3. We never utilize this, but obviously you can start utilizing from here. Even as these are the default attributes and you are getting in the forest animal too, you can invoke inside those objects to animal tester. Just let's test that one of them. Okay, let's print them. EL1 category, let's say what is that attribute we are going to use. That's not a method, right? So you can do EL1 dot, then you will get that values also, right? Where did that go? Oh, what is that? Color, right? Animal. Again, domestic animal. Okay, like that. See, and I can just provide that attribute here, something like that. Okay, this is EL1. Similarly, the color thing also, you can invoke it like that. And obviously those are constant, and we don't have any choice. We cannot override those values. So mandatorily, we just have to utilize it. Now let's say EL2 also actually should work here also. EL2. This is the copy paste. So we should be careful while doing the copy paste. Now right click. See here, we forgot to update this one as EL2 also here. Now right click, run it. See, everything works. Those attributes also we are able to fetch it from our tester class using creating the forest animal. Okay, like that. So just to recap, so we created the animal interface and we created class of forest animal, implementing that animal using implements keyword. Okay, I'm just emphasizing it, although I tell it as implement an animal cat, but the keyword is implements. Okay, just remember that. So that way you will get all the public members of that interface inside your class. By default, you get it. And you need to mandatorily override those methods which are abstract, and you put your own logic according to your business requirement. Okay, and later you are gonna use those. So in this case, these things. Now remember that we had another method also inside this one, make sound. So let's try utilizing testing that one too. Okay, so let's see how that will come up. So let's say EL1 get category, let's say make sound method, what it will give, make sound, something like that. Let's see what it will print. Let me copy paste that one here also. And let me do EL2. EL2 means my elephant. Okay, why I'm keeping elephant now? Okay, doesn't matter. It's just a name. Previously we choose elephant, that's why we're calling EL1, but that's fine. Any name is fine. Now it should give me that default sound here, oh something, right? Now if you want to override that method also in your animal class, you can do that. So how do you do that? This is called overriding. Okay, so this is also we overridden that method. So notice here what is overriding. So overriding concept comes into play when you are inheriting some method from your parents and you are giving some mechanism, you are giving some implementation, your own logic inside that method. You are not changing the signature. Last time I told this is the signature of the method, right? So the access modifier, the return type, then the name, if there is any parameters, those will remain same. Okay, that will not change anytime. Only thing is changing in overriding inside the body. Okay, inside the body, what mechanism or what logic you are putting, that is changing. So in your animal interface, there was no body actually in your methods, right? But in your animal class, you put some body. Okay, that means you overridden. That is fine. But in animal class also, in make sound, we have something. We are returning some logic here. Okay, some O sound, or maybe just to make it, let me write a string statement. Let's say a sound. Let me, rather than returning here, let me make it a to statement. And now return the sound here. That's just the same thing, but I'm just, okay, like that, I'm just sending it. So make sound, it is returning O. And in my animal class, let me override that thing. Okay, so what I will do, I'm gonna write that public, so it is suggesting me this to override this method. Let's do that. See here, it is also coming as override. This is not necessary, as I mentioned before. Okay, so if you don't put also, that is fine. You are also overriding the same because the signature actually matching here, right? Now notice here, by default, automatically IntelliJ gave me this line of code. It is calling animal interface, then the super, then the make sound. That means it's calling animal class make sound, but we don't want to do that. Rather, what we're gonna do, we'll write our own logic here. Okay, so what kind of logic we can write? Simple thing, right? Like here we did something. Simply let me make some string as some sound. Let's say, let me make a default sound of O. Then let me put some logic here, right? Let me write if it is a big category, or if okay, let me not make everything into one. So let me make a big, okay, return or sound equal to something. Okay, some sound it is making. If it is very big animal, if it is a bird, let's say make the sound as sound equal to let's say chirp, something, anything, just a logic. Okay, and else if the category is, let's say, equal to fish, okay, in that case what will happen? Let's say make some sound as something like that. Okay, you got my point. And let's say if it is a bird, okay, let's stop it. Okay, now rather than returning false here, what we are supposed to do, return the sound, because we just overridden the sound based on the logic. Okay, let me return the sound. Why it is complaining here? Else without if. What is that? Category. Okay, there one parenthesis is missing. Okay, got it. So you get the logic here. I just made up this logic on my own. There was no requirement, but I just made up some requirement and make it. So in real time, whatever the logic was, that based on that the logic will go, and actual logic will be calculated, and whatever the return type, it will calculate the return, and it will just return back that same result. Okay, in this case I'm playing with the sound of different animals. Okay, so I'm just making up that if the reptile category is big, it should send me some sound like this. If it is a bird, it should send me some chirping sound. If it is a fish, it will give me sound. And if it is a reptile, let's say his sound, something like that. Okay, now in the animal tester, I'm going to test it out. So I have two objects here, let's say reptile and a bird. Okay, so you can test creating some other objects on your own and start testing. See here, as you notice, it is a reptile, so it is giving me his sound, and it is a bird, it is giving me a chirp sound. So this is how we have written. So now you understood what is overriding, right? So overriding means you are overriding a particular methods from your parent class, right? And you are giving a body of its own. So previous body for this make sound was just to return this O sound, right? So if you don't provide any overridden method here, that means that default method will be taken from your parent class. If you provide a body of that the same method signature, then the local class or the class object you are making, it will take the preference of utilizing its own overridden method. Got it? So that's how it works. So maybe in the next class we'll read more about overloading and then polymorphism, all those concepts. Okay.